Hello everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. Dr. Judy here, Dr. Judy WTF. And being that we're right in the middle of these holidays, I thought it was appropriate to do a segment on narcissist in the holidays and the gift of boundaries. So, for those of you who do not know me and are tuning in for the first time, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. And my name is Dr. Judy Rosenberg. I'm a clinical psychologist. I run the Psychological Healing Center, and I am the founder of the Mind Map System for Healing Human Disconnect. And so with that in mind, I want to bring in the concept of narcissism, holidays, boundaries, the mind map, childhood wounds, and what everything has to do with everything that I've mentioned. And this is a call-in show, everybody, so please feel free to call in. And that number is 323-524-2599. So if you're here, I'm sure you're here because you've been embroiled with a narcissist. And in particular, holidays are a time when narcissists like to make chaos and hoard attention to themselves and cheap out on gifts, possibly, or embellish you with gifts so that they can love bomb. And we're going to talk about different types of narcissists, mainly covert narcissists, overt narcissists, what you can expect, and how to put up your boundaries. So I thought a good place to start would be to do a little bit of mind mapping. So Tony, my host, thank you so much for putting up the mind map. And there it is. This is called the Be the Cause mind map because we want to be the cause of better outcomes for our lives. And we want to not be at the effect of people like narcissists who will literally take us down a very bad pathway into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So, starting with childhood wounds, let's mind map the people who are narcissists and have incurred narcissistic injury, and then let's mind map the people who are attracted to narcissists. So, what the Freud is going on here? Why are narcissists even in your picture? And what is it about you that has you attracted to them in the first place? And that's my very noisy dog. So we'll have to bear with the narcissistic dog who heard about the title and wants all the attention to himself. Going into that, panel one. Let's go into panel one. And panel one is a metaphor because I have these graphics that represent metaphorically the darkness and the light. And you can see that the light is representative of our whole and complete self, something that takes a lifetime, if not lifetimes, to achieve. And then there are the wounds, those shadows that block us from manifesting the best of our best. And what are those shadows specifically? If we boil them down to childhood wounds, the wounds specifically are uh, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional, physical neglect, smothering, controlling, and of course, we'll add in there narcissistic parents. And what is a narcissistic parent? It is a parent who lacks empathy, who uses their own children to be their narcissistic supply, and basically flips the system from being the giver to their children to be their taker from their children. So it robs the child of their ability to experience unconditional love. It robs the child of feeling special and important. It robs the child of childhood because now they are the suppliers to these so-called parents who are taking instead of giving. So let's go for a minute to Dr. John Bowlby, who is the father of attachment theory. And what he has to say is that in order for us to have a healthy human psyche, we need certain ingredients, kind of like we need certain ingredients to bake a cake, right? We need the flour, the sugar, the yeast, the eggs, so on and so forth. In order to have a healthy human psyche, we need ingredients like eye contact from our primary caregiver. We need skin contact, preferably breastfeeding, a lot of attachment and holding. We need attunement, so we attune to the needs of the baby. We need mirroring so that the baby and you or the parent engage with each other and evolve the connectivity of the brain and the emotions. So these are some of the ingredients that are necessary for human development. And unfortunately, we live in a world where this is not exactly common. Rarely do I see or know of people who've had childhoods with nourishing parents, intact families, that they've had unconditional love, that they haven't been neglected, molested, beaten, name called, and so on. So, you know, this is the state of affairs today, and that's why we're not doing so well. We're not doing so well individually. We're not doing too well as a human race. So, in order for there to be a narcissistic injury, the the baby would, let's say, incur the wound of emotional abandonment. And this wound of neglect and abandonment and demeaning and devaluing and objectifying by the parents will create in them what I refer to as a hole in the soul. And this hole in the soul kind of makes a deal with people, not really consciously necessarily, but an unconscious deal that people are not really all that nourishing or wonderful. So we'll move to plan B. Instead of connection, I'm going to opt for power, control, manipulation, objectifying, sucking the life force out of other human beings, which I call the vampiring effect, and basically be a consumer of humans rather than somebody who adds light to other human beings. And if you've been around a person like this, then you will know that they are sickening to be around because at first, even though they love bomb you, possibly, or offer you the carrot with fake promises that motivate you to stay in the game, at the end of the game, you feel sucked dry on so many levels: financially, sexually, emotionally, spiritually. It's just a kind of a feeling of really being vampired. And that's why I call it the vampiring effect. So at the end of the journey with a narcissist, you don't feel more than, you actually feel less than who you are, which is the exact opposite of what a healthy relationship is, which I'll get into later. But basically, I'm heading in the direction of 1 plus 1 is supposed to be greater than 2, not less than. So now let's go into your wounds. Possibly you're watching this because you've been embroiled in a narcissistic relationship, and why did that happen to you? How did you become so vulnerable? What made you engage with such a person? Well, don't be too hard on yourself. I've done it. A lot of people have done it, and they're really good at what they do because they're really good at being chameleons. They can do things like love bomb you and make you feel like you're the most amazing, important, wonderful person in the world. They could do things like promise you future fake that things are going to be a rosy future, all the while stringing you along. They can chameleon really well, so they can act like a good mirror and say things like, um, your wish is my command. I remember that statement from a narcissist. Your wish is my command. So basically, what they're offering you is kind of a salve for your own hole in the soul, if you will. So, in order to make sure that you don't embroil yourself in another situation like that, It takes a lot of deep healing for that individual to essentially change their taste in what they desire in a relationship. Because remember, narcissists are good at jacking up your dopamine and serotonin or whatever love drugs exist in the body. So what happens next is a reaction to the wound. So let's move to panel 2 and see how this reaction manifests. So the reaction is where we start to crack up. Okay, so um, panels 1, 2, and 3 kind of represent pre-verbal, and panel 3 is a representation of when we start understanding and verbalizing. So the wound sometimes is so deep and unconscious that we don't even know it's there until it manifests in our life. And then the reaction is a part of the brain that I will refer to called the amygdala, which is the fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And so when you are in a narcissistic home, then you crack up. See, panel 2, like a cracked mirror here, cracked glass. And what happens is your psychoperception cracks up. So no longer are you seeing straight. So you are either fighting, you're fleeing, you're fawning, or you are, what's the fourth one? Fight, flight, freezing, or fawning. So as a baby, we can't really flee, we can't really fight. So we're either going to start shutting down, or we're gonna start fawning and starting a people pleasing mechanism. Okay, so this is something that you have to examine within yourself and ask yourself, am I a people pleaser? Am I the kind of person that gets goodies from being the good guy and helping people and curing people? And that's why people go into the healing profession. I want to help people, except that in the case of narcissism, it takes an expert to even go there. And sometimes it doesn't even work because the person is so defended that they can't take in the therapy. So moving to panel 3, we've got the encoding. So what's the encoding? The encoding is our negative core beliefs. Beliefs like, I'm not good enough, I'm not special, I'm not lovable. Or in the narcissistic encoding, it looks like I'm the most important person in the world. The world is a place to take from and manipulate and basically be a taker. So those are the encodings. Wow, my dogs are active today. I will close the door if they continue to bark like that. But you can see that these encodings are what trips us up. So if you're encoded with I have to please people in order to be loved, then the narcissist is there to receive your pleasing so that you can feel good about yourself. So it's a setup. Okay, so I'm just going to move through the panels so that I can get to the holidays and how this affects you and the holiday season and what you can do boundary wise. So if we go to panel number 4, you could see that there's a lot of chaos there. It's the chaos panel. So the bonds that you thought you were forming with a narcissist were not really bonded because you were bonded, but they were transactional. So they weren't really bonded emotionally to you. Why? Because, as I mentioned earlier, they decided that people are transactional and they're not to be bonded with. So they're better off being used rather than connected to. So you can see all the chaos that happens when you're in a narcissistic relationship or when you break the bond of a narcissistic relationship or attempt to get out. And then what happens there is very painful. And like a bad drug, like a love addiction, you're spinning around and disoriented and in pain. And most people go back. They go back to the abuser. and the cycle of violence begins again, which is what I call the what the Freud. So, who wants to be in pain, right? So you either go back to the unsustainable bond or you move to panel number 5, kind of like a bad game of life, snakes and ladders. You move to panel 5, and what's panel 5? A bunch of defense mechanisms. So we're very creative. We defend in all kinds of ways. Some people smoke, some people drink, some people watch porn, some people have love addiction, some people shut down, all kinds of defense mechanisms. And they're not healthy because in the background you see all of this toxicity. Now, the opposite of an unhealthy defense mechanism would be what the show is about, which is boundaries. Other healthy defense mechanisms would be exercising, eating right, treating yourself properly, making sure that you surround yourself with healthy people and healthy lifestyle and so on. But in the case of unhealthy defenses, we usually go to drug, sex, rock and roll, and we defend so that we numb out and don't feel the pain. Now, a narcissistic defense is a little bit different because what they do to defend is oftentimes the drug, sex, and rock and roll that goes with the deal, but they also have what is referred to as the narcissistic defense, which is a defense that's really thick. It's really hardcore. And what's different about it is that they do not take feedback. They do not take feedback because to a narcissist, feedback is criticism, and feedback is very, very caustic. So instead of taking any feedback, they'll put up a shell and they'll delve deeper into their narcissism and they'll get more vampire-ish and they will objectify harder and they will try the narcissistic tactics of demeaning, devaluing, and destroying, and faking the future, and love bombing, and all kinds of things. Because if you truly nourished them in any way, through money, through sex, through attention, through any kind of esteeming them and supplying them with their narcissistic gifts, right? Then they don't want to lose you. But the problem is that because they're not capable of completely bonding to you, because remember, they weren't particularly bonded to their primary caregiver, then they are really incapable of having empathy toward you. And empathy is a huge deal because without empathy, you could just leave a relationship and casualize the dump, or you can hurt somebody's feelings and not really feel the pain. There are a lot of things that people who lack empathy can do that people who have empathy just don't have the heart to do. Okay? So at the end of this journey, what happens is there's my little narcissistic dog, the one I love so much. So what happens is at the end of the journey, everything breaks down so that the unsustainable bond crashes and burns, the defense mechanisms don't hold up, and everything is either an implosion or an explosion. So the breakups happen, the traumas and the dramas and the re-traumatizations happen, and you can see in panel number six, if you can put that up, it's a crash and a clash, and no longer is there any kind of a synergy, even fake synergy. It's just not, because the system broke down. So really, this is predicated on a system gone wrong. So now we're up to panel number 6, and now we're going to bring in the holidays. So here comes Thanksgiving, which is past for 2025, and then we've got Christmas and New Year's, and the narcissist is going to do what a narcissist does. So if the narcissist is an overt narcissist, then you can expect what? Anybody want to hazard a guess? And this is a call-in show, 323-524-2599. So what do you think is going to happen in narcissistic character during the holidays? And if you're the happy or sad recipient of this, what do you think is going to happen to you? So anybody in the chat room want to guess at it or call in and tell tell us your experience with a narcissist in the holidays? I would love to hear from you. Tony, any questions in the chat room
Well,
or
there is
comments?
a question. I'm just waiting for people to respond to that question that you just asked.
Okay.
Let's see. There was one here. Oh, okay. Here it says they want to be the center of attention, the funniest ones, the one with the best gifts, the one who plans everything, the one everybody should be grateful for.
Right. And if the person is not narcissistic and does all those nice things, then it's coming from the consciousness of giving. So, one of the things that my book starts with, and you can show everybody the book because you can actually have a free downloaded copy of it or get it on Amazon. There it is. Thank you. Be the cause, healing human disconnect. The first thing that I talk about is that consciousness is causal. It's just that a narcissist isn't in the consciousness of giving. The narcissist is in the consciousness of manipulating and controlling and taking. And so there's an agenda. So if they give a good gift, they're gonna expect something. If they dress up beautifully, they want to be the center of attention. What was the other thing that the person commented about?
They said being the funniest one, giving the best gift. They planned everything, wanting to be grateful for everything that they do.
Okay, so they want to be grateful instead of expressing the gifts as gratitude to the people that are receiving. They want to get gratitude for the gift that they give.
Right.
Okay, do you see the difference? And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if I give a gift, I'd like to be acknowledged for that, and I want some gratitude toward that. However, if I'm in the consciousness of manipulation and I'm giving a gift so that I could be big and special and better than, and extract from the person that I'm giving the gift to a sense of obligation and a sense of now you're beholden to me, that's a whole different level of consciousness. So, do you see what I mean by consciousness? Consciousness is causal. So, if you're in the consciousness of selfishness, you're going to get one outcome, which is panel number 456, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. If you're in the consciousness truly of giving and sharing, you're going to get another outcome, which I'm going to get to right now, which is panel 789. So, what are panel 789? So, you can see encode, decode, recode. So, we want to recode ourselves into health. So, how do we do that? Recoding into health means that if you could put that panel number 7 up, I'd appreciate it so I can kind of visually show people. Is that you're going to be as whole and complete as possible, which are those orbs representing our individual isms. And we're going to want to pair with other people who are as whole and complete as possible so that together you can create friendships, romantic relationships, family relationships, community relationships that are synergistic. Okay? Synergy is the 1 + 1 is greater than 2 phenomenon, and narcissists are not conscious of synergy because they never had synergy with their primary caregiver. It wasn't a give and take, it was parents took and the children survived the taking. So basically, what they're doing is they're doing a WTF, they're doing a what the Freud replica of their childhood. So they merge with you and they get the light. You see the light in the center. So they suck the light right out of you, and then you become dark and vampired, and then they take that light. But unfortunately, nobody wins here because even that light doesn't sustain because it goes right into a dark hole, their hole in the soul. It's sort of like pouring water into a broken cup. It just kind of like seeps out the other side. So all of your giving is for naught. All the presence that you're giving is really just to fill the hole in the soul. So even if you give them something, it often feels unsynergistic and it feels unappreciated because part of their core belief underneath all of the defenses is that they're not important, they're not enough, and they're not lovable. So nothing is enough if you give them $100, not enough. $1,000, not enough. $1,000,000, not enough because they consume it. They don't turn your light and your generosity into light. Okay? Any questions so far? Anybody want to call in and talk about all of this? I know it's pretty heavy stuff, but I think that mind map sort of helps people to organize what the Freud I'm talking about and understand how this pathway of breakdown occurs and why it occurs.
There is a question, and I mean, I think I might know, but I'm going to have you answered, of course. It says, why do narcissists seem to act worse during the holidays? Is that something about the time of year that sets them off? Or is it just because we're being kind of forced together? Where
That's a great question. Why do they act worse during the holidays? Well, first of all, there are a lot of gifts in the air, right? And they want to get those gifts. So they want to eat more and drink more and be more and show more. And, it's sort of like, oh, I've got my stage, and the stage is Christmas or New Year's or any holiday, okay? And they want to be the center of attention. So it's an opportunity, I think. That's one, okay? Another reason might be that in their childhood, these holidays made them feel unimportant because it was the parents that were busy, too busy to be with them or too busy to really give them the most important gift, which is connection and love and yeah, and family. And so if the parents were drunk or out of town during the holidays, leaving the kids with the nannies, then they feel the hole in the soul deeper. And so the neediness shows up. And so they want to hoard their um, their gifts. Again, it's that hole in the soul, and temporarily it feels good. It's just that in the long run, they don't know how to hold the light because in order to hold the light, you have to have had those um, those ingredients, those nurturing ingredients from your family of origin, the eye contact, the skin contact, the nurturing, the mirroring, the attunement, the unconditional love. And without that, then we're not off to a good start. Okay, so um, during the holidays, this comes to the forefront and it can turn really ugly because a lot of narcissists have defenses that involve um, drinking, doing drugs, smoking, which, by the way, I've been saying this for many months, but my new Stop Smoking book is coming out. I want to show you guys the cover. It's called Kick It, Stop Smoking, and be the cause of better outcomes for your life. And it's really a deep dive into your smoking habit, not just from a habit point of view, but from the hole in the soul point of view. What are you doing sucking down your feelings? What are you doing defending yourself in this way of injecting poison right into your system? And it's interesting because when you're smoking, you're literally putting poison in your system. And when you're in a narcissistic relationship, you're literally poisoning yourself. So you're smoking, metaphorically speaking, the wrong energy. Okay, that hopefully makes sense to people. So back to the holidays, it's an opportunity to show off, it's an opportunity to take. There's no synergy here. You might think for a minute because, again, you have to examine your own hole in the soul, your own childhood wounds, and ask yourself, are you doing a 𝗬𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is a repeat of your own past? So one way that these childhood wounds can go, as I've talked about, is people become narcissistic and they choose power and control and manipulation and demeaning, devaluing, destroying over connections. The other way it can go is that people can become people pleasers. And people pleasers are the perfect victims, so to speak, for the narcissist because their core belief is that unless I'm pleasing, I'm not good enough, or I will not be loved, or I will not be special. And so, I want to invite everybody, of course, everybody in the world to take this mind map journey because it's not only curative, it's preventative. So that when you bust the lies and you start seeing the truth of what you've been deeply embroiled in, then you can start to clear your psycho perception and not see everything through this cracked lens of perception and not react to core negative beliefs, which we dismantle in the course of the process. So it's going to be a different outcome when you're not in this system gone wrong. So that's the purpose of the mind map, is to get you out of the system gone wrong. So if we go to panel number 7, you can see that the 1 + 1 is greater than 2 is a paradigm shift because now your clear-sightedness allows you to appreciate people who are growth partners, people who are healthy, people who are a contribution to your life, people who are going to create synergy as opposed to chaos. And then that's what you become attracted to. And no longer is the narcissist going to look attractive because you now will remember the pain of panel number 4, 5, 6, chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. So what we're really headed for, if you really want a great holiday season, is we're headed for synergistic, we want to be headed towards synergistic relationships that are true growth partners. So let's look at panel number 8. And you can see that this is a metaphor for growth. Okay, so what is growth? It's stable, it's rooted in the earth. The DNA strands are now healed and they're non-toxic. They're solid as steel. And you can see the little people on the ladder climbing the ladder and helping each other evolve. So either one is helping the other climb, or they are helping, or they're one is helping and one is elevating. Okay, so this is a true partnership and true teamwork. And so that's what a beautiful holiday looks like, where there is the gift of appreciation, there's the gift of connection. So how do you achieve that practically? One of my pet peeves is cell phones. I hate cell phones. I mean, I love them. I use them every day and I get information off of the cell phone. But you know what I don't like about them is that it's very addicting. And what I hate most about them is, of course, children being exposed to cell phones and preferring cell phones over human beings. So it's not a good thing. And during the holidays, I really suggest that you please put your cell phones away. Okay? Very, very important. And so if you don't put your cell phones away, then you're basically communicating cell phones over people, which is quite narcissistic because if you've got people there to connect with, then why are you busy on a cell phone? So shut it down unless you're a psychologist or a doctor who has to be on call. Just shut it down or put it on beeper in case of emergency. And that's the true way the true gift of, of holidays for uh, preventing yourself from being narcissistically attacked and injured and violated are boundaries. And you're allowed to have boundaries. So, what are boundaries? Let's go back to panel number 5 for a minute. So, I talked about panel 5 as defense mechanisms, and now I'm going to veer in the direction of panel 5 as boundaries. So, boundaries are something that keep us safe. So if we use this panel as a metaphor for human cells, what do human cells do? They vet what comes in and what goes out. So a human cell is responsible for being permeable, which is letting in the, the vitamins, minerals, fluids, okay, or being non-permeable, shutting out the toxins, or being semi-permeable, which is vetting what comes in and what comes out. So this holiday season, the gift that I want you to take with you is the ability to be non-permeable to toxic people, okay, or toxic anything, meaning that you politely remove yourself from them, okay? And more permeable to people who are nourishing and nurturing and interconnected. And in general, semi permeable so that you can vet people and know the difference. Okay, so kind of like the three little bears and the three chairs. If the chair is too soft, you're going to get a backache and you're not going to feel well sitting in the chair. If it's too hard, same thing, you're not going to feel good. But if it's just right, then it gives you the proper support and you feel good in it. And that's the kind of relationship that I'm suggesting that you go for. Somebody that will make you feel acknowledged, appreciated, will give you the best of their best, will um, have boundaries toward you as well, so that you be called on to be the best of your best. And okay, go ahead. There's a question, I think, in the chat room.
Yes, and we still have time if people want to call in. Please call in at 323-524-2599. You don't have to use your name if you don't want to. You can make one up, so don't feel intimidated about that. But this question says, I've been using your mind map for a long time, but when I go home, let me read. When I go home to family holidays, I'm trying to put this in little better words here. Go home for family holidays, I fall back into letting the narcissist get a reaction out of me.
You know, this is really common and it's happened to me too. Holidays are very triggering. And so, with everything that I know, my mind map and your knowledge of the mind map, sometimes we can be in situations that will still highlight leftover wounds that we possess. Okay, so that if you're triggered by a narcissist, then it feels horrible, and you might even um, have a really bad day as a result. It's sort of like back in toxicity after you've built up some sense of knowledge and immunity and you've done the work, but sometimes it can be overwhelming because the triggers are so harsh. And so, look, I've been there, I've been triggered, and once you get out of that environment, it's super important and useful to see where you've been triggered so that you could take that as a highlight of core beliefs that still exist within you. Core beliefs like I'm not important or I'm not lovable or, whatever core beliefs you hold. I invite you to sit down with my mind map, take a pencil, pen, whatever, and go to panel number 3 and write down the core beliefs that were triggered in you by the narcissist, by the environment, okay? Uh, if you have the book, then go to that chapter, panel 3, core beliefs. And remember, you can all have a free copy of the PDF version, so why not take advantage of it and just ask for it and download it, and it's yours, or buy it off of Amazon. But every time we get triggered, every time we fall off the ladder, so to speak, it's an opportunity for us to re-examine these horrendous core beliefs and regroup and do our own inner growth and process, because that's the way the light works. Okay, you're going to be triggered and triggered and triggered until you grow so tall and so strong that they are no longer triggers for you. And when you can arrive at that place where they're no longer triggers for you, then you know that you have definitely paradigm shifted. Okay, when, let's say, you have a core belief that you're stupid, and your parents called you that, and forever you were so sensitive to being triggered by that core belief that you're stupid, and then you do the mind map work, or a lot of work, and then you figure out that that core belief was some lie that you bought into, and that you outgrow that core belief, and somebody comes along and says you're stupid. It's like, and, or like, okay, or like, just no reaction. And by the way, that is sort of like, in the book I use the some metaphors from the Wizard of Oz, and one of the metaphors is the Wicked Witch, right? Dorothy spills water on the witch, and what happens to her? She starts melting. Okay, so the truth is going to melt the lie. So if you throw water in a narcissist's face, not literally, because that's not going to be too happy for you, but if you don't play into their game, if you become pH neutral and non-reactive to their attempt to trigger you, it's probably one of the most horrible narcissistic injuries you can inflict on them. And not so that you can inflict narcissistic injuries, but it's sort of like a way of dismantling their effects on you. So um, remember, truth is a very important element to your boundaries. So tell yourself the truth. The truth is, and the truth is, and the truth is, this doesn't feel right, or the truth is, I don't need to be around this, or the truth is, I don't need to buy into this, or the truth is, I'm still triggered by this and it hurts me and I need some more work around this. So either way, you win. If you go into the holidays and you're severely triggered by these people, then you have a lot to learn about yourself, that you're still vulnerable, you're still reeling in pain from some old narcissistic injuries, and that you haven't healed or haven't healed completely. So revisit the healing, and keep working on it so that you can dismantle the lies that you bought into. Does that make sense to the person who commented on that? Just give me a anything, thumbs up, something.
As I'm waiting on that response, this is another good question that I think a lot of people are going through. I've heard this, even Oprah did a segment on this, how people are pretty much just disconnecting from holidays at all with family. But this one says, should I miss the holiday, Christmas and Thanksgiving, to protect my kids from my narcissistic parents?
Well, one of two things: either limit it and don't engage and teach your children boundaries. So if anybody does or says anything that's disruptive, I'm not really a fan of family disconnect. Sometimes people do have to disconnect from their families, but it's kind of sad, because families just sometimes are big. Some people deserve to be disconnected from, some people don't deserve to be. So, you got to kind of play a better game of life. So if you're going to show up, you might want to show up for a shorter amount of time. You want to pull out your boundaries, or if they're just so disgusting and toxic. I mean, obviously, I've been working with people for, a few decades now, and some people's families are just so unbelievably toxic that it's impossible to sit down with them. It's just an exercise in injury. And so, look, if you've been so demeaned, devalued, destroyed, verbally, physically, sexually abused, emotionally neglected, whatever it is, if it's so bad and you haven't worked it through with the person at the table, then your choices are very minimum contact. And there's a thing called gray rock. And it's been talked about not only by me, but other people, which is very superficial conversations. Oh, how's the salad? Oh, it's great. Oh, those Christmas lights are beautiful. Oh, I love those Hanukkah candles. Like anything that doesn't involve your emotions. So that's a way of remaining gray rock. You don't engage. And if people violate you, it's not a bad idea to sit in a different spot away so you can engage with the people that bring you more light and keep away from people that don't honor you. And there are ways, but if it's so bad, look, I'm not going to tell you to go to a place that's going to make you toxically miserable and you have to go home and have a horrible evening. So pick your situations, and that's why I call this episode The Boundaries as the Gift, because your boundaries are your boundaries and you get to set them. So boundaries can be anything from non-permeable, which is, I just am not going to show up because it's too much, to semi-permeable. I'll show up, but I'm going to vet the situation. I'm going to vet the people. I'm even going to vet where I sit and vet what kind of conversations I'm going to have with who. Because the last thing you want to do is go vulnerable with a narcissist, because vulnerability is something that they like to take advantage of for their own narcissistic supply. Okay, so play that better game of life. Be vulnerable with those that you're able to be vulnerable with, because that's a beautiful thing. You don't want to stop doing that, because then we're not human. We don't get to connect, and we don't get to uh, do something vital to our humanity, which is share and care and give and take, receive and share, because that's the cycle of life. We're receiving the light in order to share the light, and that's something that is very emphasized in Kabbalah, something that I studied quite a bit of, and something that inspired my mind map. And that's where the mind map came from, was when I was studying Kabbalah, and it's really a description of creation. So we're created, and the further we move away from the light, we go into chaos, defenses, and breakdowns. And the more we reunite with the light, uh, then we can paradigm shift, and we can therefore be great receivers of the light in order to share. And the more we share, the more light we get. So it's a kind of a system of receiving and sharing and receiving and sharing. And the more you receive and then share, the bigger your vessel gets. And the narcissist vessel doesn't get bigger, because their receiving is a way of just sucking dry, and they don't grow. Okay, so stay away from people who are not growth partners. Set your boundaries so that you are the cause of better outcomes for your holiday seasons and for your life in general. And also, if you do have children, pay this forward so that the next generation can learn boundaries, learn about mental health, learn about negative core beliefs, bust the lie, and not be at the effect of life and truly be the cause. of life and your life. So thank you very much. Any other comments or questions in the chat room?
Nope, that's about it. I mean, there's comments, but no more questions.
Okay, and then if you want to avail yourself of the video that I created a few years ago called Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, please feel free to contact me, the clinic, and it's a complete video and pathway to healing so that it'll cut down on therapy time and it'll give you a real hands-on course, so to speak, so that you can free yourself from the narcissistic trap. So thank you very much. And if anyone has further questions and wants to connect, feel free to do so. Good night, everyone. Happy holidays.